Welcome to our webinar on how to optimize your website for Q4. I am Patricia Simon and I am the inbound and content specialist here at our refinery. Today I'm joined by Robin DeWitt, who's our programmatic advertising expert, who will be talking about ways on how you can get your website all ready for Q4. Robin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We're gonna get back to you in just 1 second because I wanted to introduce this session just by explaining a little bit why is Q4 so important for publishers. And this is because this is the last stretch of the year, meaning advertisers are trying to spend their remaining budget. And it also happens to be the season where the most important shopping holidays take place. You have Cyber Monday, Christmas, Black Friday, and Singles Days, you name it. And for this reason, there is a huge demand for ad space, which makes CPM skyrocket, meaning this season, it is the most profitable time of the year for a publisher. And there are a few things you can do in your ad monetization strategy to make the most out of this situation. But first, there are also a few strategies you can do on your own to guarantee this strategy has the best performance. And that's with basic SEO. And why do you need SEO? To grow your traffic and optimize your user experience, because the more traffic you have, the more attractive your site is going to be to an advertiser. And for this reason as well, your ad inventory will be more valuable. And what can you do in the SEO department to optimize your website? First of all, you need to check your content. Take a look at it and scan it to see if it has what it takes to rank on the search engine result pages, and also to appear referenced by the generative AI search results. Because now that large language models like AI overviews and ChatGPT are becoming so popular for search, it is a good idea to keep that in mind to increase your visibility. And for this, you can just quickly check if these tools mention you, what they talk about you, and if they have you in their database. Also, to dive in a bit more into what can you do in your SEO strategy, make sure you're using relevant keywords to your audience, and you are implementing these keywords in a way a normal human would use them. For example, in a question, you can find these keywords doing some research and using tools like Google Trends or SEMrush if you're feeling a bit fancy. Also, make sure you're writing your content in a human tone so it can be easily picked up by the large language models I mentioned before. Also, structure your content using the proper headings, your H1, H2, H3, so users can easily navigate through your site. And also, this will add points to your user experience, to have a very positive user experience. Remember those keywords I mentioned before. Make sure you're adding them, your meta descriptions, your URLs, your title tags, and your alternative text. And this is more off-page SEO strategy, but if you're making good content, it's gonna get referenced by other websites. And you have to make sure these backlinks you're getting are trustworthy. And if you notice you have any toxic backlink leading to your website, you have to disavow it. You can also use tools like SEMrush to keep track of this. Now, that's on a content level. Now, to get a bit more technical, you should also check your core web vitals, which are Google's metrics used by Google to measure your user experience. And all you have to do to keep track of them is go over to PageSpeed Insights, type your URL, and here you'll get a full breakdown of your metrics. And if there's any issues, you'll also get a description on how to fix it. Of course, this list goes on and on and on and on, and there are plenty of things you can still do to keep optimizing your content to rank on the search engine result pages and also improve your domain authority. This is gonna take a few days, so be patient, and if you have any questions, please let us know. But by covering these basics, you'll have what it takes to start boosting your potential to rank on Google. And without further ado, let's go over to Robin, who's gonna dive into ways to optimize your website on an ad monetization level to make the most out of Q4.
All right, thank you so much, Patricia. That was great stuff. Yes, we're gonna dive into a couple of strategies on what can be done on your website and what things you should be keeping an eye on in order to make sure that your optimization for Q4, but of course also for the rest of the year, is optimal. But as Patricia said, Q4 is, as usual, the quarter where most money is being spent by advertisers for many reasons. We don't expect it to be any different this year. So let's dive into it. The first one is the ads.txt file. So just a little recap. What is the ads.txt file? This is a .txt file which is placed on the root of the website, and through which publishers are able to authorize SSPs to sell their inventory. And what this file does, it gives the publisher the control to decide who they want to work with and who they do not want to work with. And something important to keep in mind over here is that an ads.txt file is it's something that's alive. It's not something that you're supposed to upload once to your website and just leave it there. It's something that's supposed to be continuously updated, maintained, reviewed in order for it to keep working optimally. Because what it is, the ads.txt file is part of a chain in what's called the digital supply chain, through which advertisers and the SSPs and the DSPs are able to verify that where they are buying is legit inventory, and that it belongs to the person that it belongs to, the way they are buying it, whether it's through a reseller or a direct connection. So in that sense, the ads.txt file is really at the center of programmatic advertising. So what do you need to do? Well, first of all, make sure you have it up to date. Your provider will usually have a dashboard where they share their ads.txt file, which needs to be implemented on the website. In this case, make sure that all the lines are implemented. That's the first step. Making sure that all the lines are implemented, because if you are missing important lines from a certain partner, that means you are potentially missing out on revenue, because that partner, because you don't have the lines in your ads.txt file, is simply unable to monetize through that demand source, and therefore you're missing out on that demand. Therefore, you're missing out on the revenue. Secondly, it's important to make sure that the file is well up to date. There are tools available for this, for example, sellers.io, which allow you to review your ads.txt file, for example, for lines which are no longer in use. Why is it important to make sure that the file then is clean and up to date? And well, also, for example, another example why it's important to keep the file clean is maybe you have stopped working with a partner. If you just leave the lines in there, that is actually something that advertisers will notice. That they will think, oh, hey, I'm able to buy through this partner the inventory that I'm having over here. But in the end, it turns out that they're unable to, even though through the ads.txt file, supposedly they are able to join or are able to access your inventory. In practically, they're unable to access it because you have stopped the connection. So in order for, on one hand, to stop confusion on the advertiser side, make sure that any unused partners have been removed from your ads.txt file. At the same time, it's good practice to make sure that any lines that SSPs from their end have stopped working with, to also make sure that those are no longer in the ads.txt file, simply to make sure that there is to offer good transparency on how you're able to buy this. So even though it's not something that should be a lot of work, but just making sure every time that you receive an update, make sure that you update your ads.txt file. If you stop working with a partner, make sure you take their lines out of your ads.txt file as well, just to make sure that everything stays clean, stays up to date. Because as soon as you stop having these good practices, you lose control, and then you might be 2 years down the line and you have no idea anymore of what you have in your ads.txt file, and you need to basically start from scratch again. So, well, also might be good to mention over here at Refinery, we do offer, for example, a ads.txt redirect, which is a redirect that you are able to put on your website, and which will basically mean your ads.txt file is always up to date. And because whenever we make a change, it automatically gets updated on your end as well. So just a little tool or tip that we have from our end. Then, secondly, we're moving on, integrating high value ad formats. So before I get started with this, as Patricia already mentioned, Q4 there is a lot of demand for advertising space. There are a lot of special events going on, Black Friday, Singles Day, Christmas, you name it. And this is the time of year, because there's such high demand for ad space, that advertisers are also really looking to stand out, because they are. It's not only the competition in sense of volume, it's also a competition for your attention. So that's where high value ad formats come in. Why are they interesting? Because they are highly visible. They're called high value ad formats, not only because of the high CPMs that are being paid for them. Rather, the high CPMs that are being paid for them is because of the results that they generate. What these formats all have in common is that they will have good CTRs and they will have high viewability on websites. Plus, they also generate high impact on websites. For the advertisers, of course, this is interesting. They're getting the results that they want, especially in a crowded time of year. They're willing to pay premium for these formats, and therefore, what does this mean for the publisher? Is that your monetization is going to be optimal, at least to the extent that you wish for it. Because the thing with these high value ad formats is that you need to keep in mind, what do I want? Where do I want it? Because it's important to keep your user experience in mind. What you want is the user to be able to use the website in a way that they are happy with. Well, in the end, it's you that knows your users the best and what they will accept, because this can vary greatly from website to website. Some websites are more lenient when it comes to these more intrusive ad formats, as we can also call them, while others are very conservative and need to keep their users happy. And of course, different formats have different advantages in that sense. If we're looking here over at the presentation, for example, the ones that, for me, at least personally, I'm speaking, the stuff like the push-up is always a big favorite with advertisers. We also notice that this, for publishers, is a format that is used by the vast majority of them. If we're looking, for example, at the in-image, this takes advantage of of a space that's usually not monetized. So it really provides a unique space in order where to put the ads. Of course, you got to have this space available if your images are too small. This is also something you might want to consider. The interstitial, this is something that publishers sometimes are a little bit more cautious with, but advertisers are a huge fan of. They really love the interstitial because of the high impact, because it's really exclusive attention that they're getting for 1 or 2 seconds, or maybe a little bit longer. And they're really paying premium CPMs for that, especially in the lead up and into Q4. Some others, the takeover is something, a classic format that has been around for years. It takes advantage of the unused space sort of around your website. So great for visibility, great for impact. Of course, also premium CPMs. And then, of course, we have the in-stream and the out-stream video formats, which which allow advertisers to really show visuals that they're not able to do through the standard display banners. So this is a small selection of high-value ad formats or high-impact ad formats. In any case, something that you really got to look out for over here when implementing these is, okay, who are my users? What will they accept? And of course, where are they navigating? If most of my traffic, for example, is on mobile, say I have 98% on mobile, maybe it's not that interesting for me to implement a desktop takeover. But a mobile push-up on the other hand, will have a much greater impact on my bottom line. So that's something to, if you have an account manager at your monetization partner, really discuss this with them. We also help our publishers always, and we discuss these things with them. Like, okay, what are you comfortable with? What do you want to do? where do you want to go, so that we really have a good understanding and a mutual collaboration in that sense. Finally, third strategy, building a brand safe content plan. Okay. There we go. So, why is it important to build a brand safe content plan? Because as programmatic advertising has matured, I'm sure we've all heard of contextual advertising and brand safety, which means that advertisers right now, they're no longer looking to just buy on a domain. They are really careful where they want to put it. Yes, of course, the fact that your domain is of high value is very important to the advertisers, but on an article level, they will also start looking at, okay, what content do we really have here, and do I want to be on that content? So an example in terms of content is always that content can't just be interpreted by a simple system, because if an advertiser, let's say, is not interested in articles that have the word fire on them, that might not really be useful, in the sense that what we're looking at is that, okay, we might write an article, okay, that a house was on fire, it burned down, and they might say, okay, that's negative, I don't want to be there. But let's say Real Madrid had an amazing game, and we said that Bellingham is on fire that night. Okay, that is actually using the same word in a positive sense. So for that reason, it's very important that these contextual systems, and they are very advanced right now, actually get the proper context of the website. Sure, they're doing that right now, but that also means that it's important to keep in mind, okay, what am I writing? So advertisers, indeed, they will tend to avoid stuff like negative content. They will articles about violence. What else do we have? Anything that's generally negative that they do not want to be associated with. And the debate over here is, of course, we do not want to censor anything. It's a free press. You should be able to write whatever you want about whatever topic that you want. But when writing about whatever topic that you want, keep in mind that there's an advert that you want to make money with that article. And what you want to do is write the same article that you're going to write about whatever the topic is that you're going to write about, but keeping that advertiser in mind. Maybe just changing the wording a little bit on an article can have a huge impact. Just choosing a little bit different words, maybe making it slightly more positive, maybe, I don't know, maybe even slightly less critical on certain elements, or less speculative and more factual, could really have a huge impact in that sense, of where the advertiser is going to say, oh wait, this content, even though it says exactly the same, these two pieces of content, even though they say exactly the same thing, I prefer the more positive, maybe the more, how do you say it, the more natural one in that sense, in order to put my advertisement there. So some actual steps that actionable steps that we have over here is, on the first hand, indeed, try to avoid harmful content. Yes, of course, in an accident, for example, might be very sensational, but we know, at least from a monetization perspective, that this is it's not very valuable when it comes to advertisers. RPMs on these kind of articles tend to be lower, so if you're able to avoid this sensational content, and instead, with the same effort, write something maybe slightly less sensational, maybe a bit more authentic, that will be very much more interesting to the advertisers. Also, tailor an editorial calendar for premium relevance. So indeed, yes, there's a certain seasonality going on in the world. Of course, we've got the summer holiday, we've got the Christmas holidays, we've got Easter coming up. There are always certain events, and advertisers are of course trying to use these events in order to market their products. What can you do? Well, also, if you have content that is relevant to the time of year, advertisers will actually prefer this than to this and maybe more general content, say evergreen content. And now that we have Christmas coming up, content about Christmas, for example. Why are we even talking about Christmas? It's still summer over here. But okay, now that we got Christmas coming up, content about Christmas during the Christmas period will be more relevant than, for example, an evergreen content. Say, for example, you have a recipe page. A nice Christmas recipe will be, in that sense, more relevant than a more general recipe about just any normal cake. So that's something that you can play with. Save the content for the right time of year in order to publish it, in order to make it also more relevant for the publishers. And of course, we always recommend working with a trusted partner to make sure that demand is safe. Over here at Refinery, we work with several premium trusted partners, premium partners from the demand side. They also give us very good feedback in terms of the brand safety when it comes to the publishers that they work with. And yes, this is also feedback if necessary that we share with our publishers in order to give them a little bit of insights into what is happening, how can they improve their content, what is liked by advertisers, or maybe what's not. So that's my part, at least, on the tips on how to get ready for Q4.
Well, thank you, Robin. That was very insightful. So now let's do some Q&A. So if you have any questions, please write them in the chat, and we're gonna do our best to answer them as best as possible. So in the meantime, I've been meaning to ask you something, Robin.
Hey, tell me.
You talked about the importance of having your ads.txt file updated.
Yes.
So how frequently do you think it's necessary to check on this file, make sure it is updated?
Okay, so generally speaking, I'd say make sure it's up to date at least every quarter. Mm-hmm. Let me say it differently. If you're working with a simple header bidding solution, maybe with just like 3-4 partners in there, it's enough to make sure it's up to date every quarter. Mm-hmm. If we're getting into more advanced solutions, like for example ours, where we have quite a broad demand stack, different partners, different integration types, etc. There I would really try to see if it's possible to do it once a month, once every 2 weeks. Make sure that the ads.txt file, just give it a quick check. If you're just working with us exclusively, for example, it's a simple matter of copy pasting it. Should not take more than 2-3 minutes every 2 weeks. So if you get that as a habit, I think that's very good practice, because our partners, for example, we're constantly updating our ads.txt file. It's constantly happening. I know publishers might at some point actually get crazy because of the messages that they get. So yeah, just having it up to date in that sense is very good. But also at the same time, if you're able to, for example, have a solution in place where the ads.txt file is automatically updated by the partner, that of course it saves a lot of time, because then you just don't need to worry about anything anymore.
Oh, okay, very great. Now, good to know. And also, at the end, you mentioned brand safety, and it's very good to have content that is going to be appealing to an advertiser. Mm-hmm. But do you have any strategies for writing content that's attractive for an advertiser, but also doesn't compromise your identity as a publisher?
I think that is something that's very difficult to give like a general answer on, because every publisher is different. Everybody has their own history of writing, etc. So I think there is not like one solution for every publisher in that sense. Publishers really need to sort of do a little bit of an introspection, I guess, and reflect. Okay, just review the content that they've been writing, see it, and think a little bit like, okay, hey, the content that I'm writing over here, if I were an advertiser, would I want to be here? Is there maybe something that I'm saying that might put them off? Just put yourself in the shoes of the big brands, because let's be quite honest. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of websites out there. There's a lot of inventory out there. Writing brand safe content is your way of standing out and making sure that advertisers are choosing your website over the competitors, basically. So that's what we're trying to achieve over here. making your website as attractive as possible for advertisers so that they want to be there. And there is at least no red flags that are putting them off, for which they could be saying like, okay, wait, let's just skip this website because there's so much else out there where we could also be advertising. No, you want to be on the good list with them, not on the naughty list.
Yeah, it's all about finding the right balance.
Yeah.
And speaking of compromising things, you also talked about high value add formats. Very interactive, very engaging, but how do you implement them in your website without compromising the user experience we mentioned earlier that's going to drive traffic to your website?
Yeah, again, that is something very personal for each publisher, because each publisher, I mean, I've been working with publishers for like 9 years now. I've noticed that every publisher has a different approach to this. What is okay for one publisher is way too much for another. So this is a very personal choice that a publisher needs to make. Yes, definitely listen to the input that your partner or your monetization partner is giving you in that sense, because solutions and options, there are many out there. I would also say, do not be afraid to test. Okay, maybe in the midst of Q4, definitely do not test at that period. Any testing that you want to do it beforehand, because these formats also take some time to get up and running properly, to get partners connected, etc. So in that sense, they know their website, they know their users, they know when their users are going to start complaining. So take that as a base. If you want to listen to your account manager, listen to what formats might be interesting, what you find attractive, more intrusive, less intrusive. Find the right balance over there and test it. If you're like, okay, this could be interesting, but I'm not sure. Okay, test the format for a couple of weeks, listen to the feedback from your users, see how they're going to react. And if you don't get any complaints, it probably means that the users are fine with it. And then you can just continue using it and profit from the additional revenue uplift that it's giving you.
Good to know. Would you say it's better to, just pick a few ad formats that you know are going to work more than add a lot of them in your website? Because we're looking into quantity over quality here. So which one would you say is better?
So in that sense, I think it's very important to keep a tight grip on your ad unit setup, because as you mentioned, there's so many formats out there. There's so many companies out there trying to innovate with new formats, trying to get them implemented, trying to get exclusivity, etc. If you don't keep a tight grip on these are the ad units that I'm working with, these are the type of formats that I want on each placement, you risk that it really becomes a mess. And that's something that you want to avoid. And especially in terms of avoiding end user experience, going back to your previous question as well, is you don't want to have stuff like overlaps. You don't want to have difficult or positions which are, for example, difficult to close. All those things are, you just don't want them, because that's bad for your user experience. So if you have a very tight setup within which you're able to experiment, I think that is something very positive. Because then you should know, okay, I have this position. I know that even if I load this partner, there's not going to be another partner loading at the same time where there might be conflicts or anything. So that's what did I answer your question?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, okay.
No, I totally get it. And are there any trends you see coming for the next Q in the programmatic advertising industry in general that are going to take over the next Q?
Well, if I've learned anything in the industry over the past couple of years, is that there's nothing major going to be happening in Q4. We're not going to, in the same way that, of course, Google a couple of years ago was talking about deprecating the cookies in Q4. Everybody knew that was not going to happen. Why the hell did they do that in Q4? So we're not going to see any major shifts in that sense, I think, in Q4 for this year. And yes, of course, Q4 is going to be the best time of year. It always is. I mean, yes, seasonality is a fact. Q4 in that sense is the best time of year, no problem. What we have been seeing is that the market is becoming more unpredictable. So even though Q4 is going to be the best time of the year, we are unsure what exactly is going to be happening because advertisers are also shifting their strategies. There are many macroeconomic, macro-political events ongoing over the past couple of years, which have all been influencing how the advertising industry has been running. So, yeah, we live in a little bit of an uncertain time right now, which is just a reality, but nonetheless means that, well, if your setup is, if you do your setup right, Q4, you're still going to be very happy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we discussed best practices. So, I mean, in the case for the monetization part and the SEO part, I think both of them will work all year long. It's all about adapting to the seasonality.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
And of course, we talked about the best practices, their seasonalities within the advertising industry, which is perfectly fine. But you got to keep these best practices going all year long, especially what you mentioned at the beginning with the SEO. It's not, you know, even though there are some quick wins, it's really a long-term project that you got to commit to.
Yeah, totally.
And the same is pretty much true for advertising. It's a long-term project.
Yeah, 100%. Does anyone else have any questions?
Oh.
Tough crowd.
We explained everything to
Yeah,
well,
okay.
I guess.
No, it's okay, it's okay. So, I mean, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this webinar, please let us know. And if you are there any other topics you'd like us to cover for future webinars, please do tell us. You're going to receive an email within the next few days with the video and the slide presentation. And also, follow us on social media or subscribe to our newsletter if you want to be the first one to find out when our next webinar is going to be. So again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much, Robin, for the presentation. And see you next time.